それではお時間になりましたので、トップランナーマーケティング主催30億円資金調達したライブストーム CEO に聞く海外最新ウェビナートレンド&ノウハウを始めます。本日司会を務めますトップランナーマーケティングの佐藤です。よろしくお願いします。本日の登壇者をご紹介します。主催は弊社トップランナーマーケティング代表取締役の清水です。モデレーターにおつなぎ株式会社代表取締役茂木様をお迎えしております。茂木様、一言ご挨拶よろしくお願いします。
はい。はじめましての方は、はじめまして。おそらく多くの方が多分知っていただいているんじゃないかなと思いますが、おつなぎの茂木と申します。今日は楽しい会にできればと思いますので、非常に楽しみです。よろしくお願いします。
ありがとうございます。どんなお話が2人から聞けるのか非常に楽しみです。はい。続きまして、ゲストにフランスのウェビナープラットフォーム企業ライブストームの共同創業者兼 CEO を務めるジル様をお迎えしております。ジル様、本日はご参加ありがとうございます。一言ご挨拶よろしくお願いします。
ありがとうございます。こんにちは、Gilles です。That's all I can say in Japanese. But thank you so much for inviting me. I'm super excited to be here. This is a topic that I know a lot. I've been working in this space for the last 7 to 8 years now. And I'm the CEO of a company called Livestorm, which is a webinar software. We operate mostly in Europe. And this is a company that I founded in university. And this is my first company that I ever founded. And we have over like 5,000 customers in APAC, mostly Europe, but APAC, North America as well. And from very small companies up to Fortune 500. So we have a very, very different use cases, and I'm really, really happy to be here and being able to share that with you today.
ありがとうございました。それではお待たせしました。インタビューに入ってまいります。インタビューと Q&A セッションを担当します。上野です。よろしくお願いします。それでは早速インタビューに入ります。最初の質問です。海外におけるウェビナーの現在のトレンドと今後5年間で注目すべき変化は何でしょうか？また、コロナが落ち着いてきて以前よりオフラインのイベントが増えたと思います。ウェビナーの流行りは今後も続いていくのでしょうか？それとも数として減っていくのでしょうか？という質問もイベントの申し込み時にいただきましたので、合わせてご回答お願いします。
Yes. Okay, so I think the first thing we need to consider is that in video conferencing, you have different way of thinking about the types of events that you're going to run. So the thing I like to do is think about two axes. So we have one, which is the complexity. So think about this graph like this, right? So we have one that is very, the complexity, sorry, and one that is, which is the size of the audience. So the bigger the audience and the bigger the complexity, the more you will fall in the category of what we used to call virtual events, which is basically the replication of physical events, but on the web. And for events that have a very low complexity, but very small audiences, this is typically the meeting type of video conferencing, okay? And I think the more you go towards the meeting configuration, the more you will have recurrence and the more you will actually find it still today, because COVID has installed the remote work paradigm in our way of working today. My company is fully remote. We have 150 people, and those people are all remote. And we do a lot of meeting, we do a lot of webinars, but we don't do so much virtual event. The thing that is true is when you go back to physical events, you have less virtual events, and typical companies that used to do solely virtual events are basically shutting down today. In Europe and in America, we have this company called Hopin, and Hopin has basically shut down. He was valued over $4 billion, and now he has been acquired by, I don't remember, RingCentral, and I think it was acquired for like 15 million. So basically the valuation went down very, very fast because they were only doing this very specific types of event, which is virtual event. But if you look at meeting and webinars, this is a way of communicating and selling and training that has been increased during COVID and with the whole paradigm of remote work. So I think your question should be more like, are we going in the next 5 years to continue selling on training and teaching on a remote scale and abroad? I think my answer, I think, is yes. We will continue doing that. So meetings and webinars will continue. Virtual events, I am not so sure, or at least much less than it used to be. And the market has recalibrated itself, and now we see that all those virtual event companies are mostly shutting down or maybe downscaling, and webinars and meetings will actually continue. If you don't mind me, maybe I can share some internal data of our own actually usage and participant activity, so actually the audience can see what I'm talking about, if you don't mind, and then I will just hand back the screen sharing over to you
は
again.
い、ぜひよろしくお願いします。
Okay. Okay. So this is internal data. Let me just go back here. Can everybody see the graph on my screen?
は
Yes,
い、見えてお
perfect.
ります。
Okay, so here you can see there is basically 3 lines, okay? So let's look at the blue one for startups. I'm just going to disable it. So this is the participants. So this is the attendees. It is quarter over quarter. So the year of 2023 is not over, so let's not look too much at the 2023, but still, you can see there is this huge spike on 2020, right? This is the COVID spike. And what is very interesting in that this spike continues in 2021, 2022, and so on and so forth, and even 2023. Today, in 2023, we're going to cross the 10 million participants on our platform, even though COVID is over for, since 2020 and 2021. So I guess the thing that is interesting to consider is why. And I think if you look at this session, so this is the number of sessions that occur on our platform. It keeps growing every quarter, every year, even though I don't have the line here, but even though the average number of attendees is flattening or decreasing, or at least flattening, stays flat, the number of sessions increase. So my conclusion is that maybe we have less people coming, which is normal because we're all back to work, etc., on a certain level. But the number of sessions will increase because we have implemented this way of selling and this way of thinking into our daily habits as a marketer or trainer or seller or whatever. So there is more recurrence of video conferencing sessions, and there is more participants overall, even though the number of attendees is flat. So I think for me, it is a sample that expresses how the market behaves today. So I'm going to hand back the screen sharing to you. Here we go.
丁寧なご説明ありがとうございます。今後もそのウェビナーの活用に期待できるようなデータも見せていただいて、ものすごくためになりました。次の質問に移ります。はい。イベント当日に参加者との交流を図るエンゲージメントの高め方と、なんでエンゲージメントを高めることが重要かについて教えてください。エンゲージメントについて補足をすると、一方的な配信ではなく、アンケートを取ったり、コメントを投稿したりするように、参加者がイベントに主体的に関わることを指します。日本ではまだ一方的な配信スタイルが多く、具体的にどのように取り組めば参加者を巻き込み、そのウェビナー中の体験をよくできるのかについて教えてください。
This is a great question. Thank you. it is actually one of the main reasons why we built Livestorm in the first place. The one thing that I realized back in 2015 is that it was very much one way. It was very one way in a way of doing things in Europe, in North America, and it was, if we ran a survey then to our attendees, they will basically tell us that they kind of lost attention after 10, 15, 20 minutes, as the survey initially at the beginning of this presentation showed, right? And if they lose attention, if they lose interest, if they are not stimulated, then you're missing some value. You're missing some actionable some actions that those attendees can take in order to, I don't know, grow your business or whatever is the purpose of the webinar. So engagement is not just about having an audience that's, interacts with you. It is an audience that stays stimulated by the content you're going to produce and stimulated by the semantic, the meaning of what you're sharing. Okay, and the more stimulated, the more engaged they are, the more likely there is a strong correlation with all the actions you're going to take after the webinar, okay, and the purpose of your webinar. So engagement is important because it is a proxy, a driver for the results, the end game results of the webinar. If you want to generate leads, if you want to train, if you want to sell, if you want to, I don't know, educate on the matter, you need to have that person, those people engaged. Otherwise, they could not come, it will be the same result. So that's why you need to have engagement, you need to maximize engagement. So now how do you engage with those people? One thing that I feel is working for us, and this is the most counterintuitive things I feel, is you're going to talk about something that is serious, right? You're going to talk about your business. You're going to talk about something that is very, very formal in a way. But in order to be engaging, you have to be more casual about it. You have to consider that it is a conversation as if you're going to have a conversation with every single of your attendees, okay? And trying to imagine that you are going to have a conversation with them. It is a dialogue. As soon as you consider that this is a dialogue with someone and not a very formal presentation with hundreds of people watching you, it becomes very different in your way of interacting. One thing that I like to do in my own webinars is I try to talk to people like very directly and say, for example, hi, John, can you tell us, thank you for joining today. Can you tell us in the chats what is your marketing stack or the tools that you use for this purpose, for example? And trying to engage, point finger at someone and trying to interact with them or her, okay? And this is something that I like to do because all of a sudden they become very engaged. It becomes very personal for them. And I think bringing the webinar on a personal level is the best way to engage. One thing that is, and this is my conclusion. The last item that I like to do is have what we call icebreaker. So think of it as a writer, right? A writer, when they go and start writing something, they have this blank page. And a blank page is very scary. It works the same way for a chat, for a questions, for polls. It works exactly the same way. Nobody wants to be the first person to interact on a blank canvas, on a blank chat. So what you want to do is, when the webinar opens, have an excuse to fill the chat or to fill the questions and the polls, to make sure there is some life. Okay, life, it's very much about that. So one thing that we do, for example, is we ask, it could be something very simple. You can just ask them, okay, where are you typing from? And everybody will start typing, and the chat will just, starts filling. Or maybe you can say something like, on the count of 3, everybody's going to share their favorite drinks. Could be something very, very silly, but all of a sudden the webinar becomes much more casual, much more personal, and the chat fills with the black canvas does not exist anymore. And I think it relieves the pressure, relieves the formality, but it doesn't mean that the content is not serious, which is very different, you see. And I think this is how you can engage a presentation. Go on a personal level somehow, on a certain level, obviously. It depends on the culture, but I think it's always nice when you can interact with someone as a person. That's it.
実際のチャットの活用方法をはじめとした丁寧なご回答ありがとうございました。それでは3つ目の質問です。ウェビナーの主催者がイベントが成功したかを測る上で見るべき指標は具体的にはどのようなものがありますか？よくある KPI には、ウェビナーからの商談獲得数や参加者数、Q&A セッションでの質問数などが挙げられますが、成功度合いを測るためにはどの数値を見るべきでしょうか？お願いします。
Yes. Great question. It is actually a very difficult question because it is an event, a webinar in general has a lot of different factors. So obviously, yes, attendance is the first step. You want people to attend. That's it. But this is the very basic. This is like the foundation of the pyramid. You want people to attend. So attendance rate, meaning out of 100 people, how many that register, how many will actually attend. Then you want to see the duration of that attendance. Okay, if people tend to leave at 40% or 50% or even like 20% of your webinar, it means that basically the content was not interesting enough, or maybe there was a glitch or something that happened that made people leave. So you want to, those are the very basics that you want to have: attendance rate and the duration of the attendance. And then there is engagement. So engagement it really depends on the webinar configuration. But I feel that the chats, the numbers of questions, you actually have to bring this ratio down to one person. So how many questions, how many chat messages, how many polls, answers per person, okay? If that number is above 1, it means that basically everyone has engaged, which is a very good thing. If you have 30, 100, 1,000 people, if everybody engage at some point with you, it means that you had some sort of interaction with everyone, which is exactly what you look for. So this ratio of interaction per person per webinar, if it is above 1, then you're in a good place. And then you have to consider that the webinar for sales, for training, again, for marketing, for whatever purpose, it fits into a funnel. It fits into a journey, okay? So think about it as an ad, like an advertising campaign. If you do that advertising campaign, you're not going to look at it from the prism of that single advertising campaign. You want to look at the results it will bring, right? The business is going to bring afterwards. So in order to do that, you have to look at you have to choose a single metric that is attached to your webinar but does not belong in the webinar. So maybe it is the number of opportunities that the webinar will bring. Maybe it's the number of, I don't know, the number of certifications, if this is a training webinar. So you have to attach something that belongs to your marketing funnel to the webinar. For example, one thing that we do here at Livestorm, and it is not related to webinar, it is attached actually to the advertising paradigm. So we have our Google advertising ads, okay? And one thing that my team used to do is just look at the number of leads it would bring. But the leads itself, so in this case for us, it will be just the attendees. The leads itself is just, it's a vanity metric. What I mean by vanity metric, you can bring the leads up, but if it does not bring any business at the end, it's meaningless. So we started looking at the number of opportunities and trying to have some sort of cost per opportunity or result per opportunity for those ads. I think it is exactly the same thing with webinars. You have to attach some sort of business metric to it to have an understanding of the actual ROI of that medium. So it depends on all businesses, and it's up to you to figure the right metric. The last thing I want to bring is at Livestorm, we also came up with a single metric that tried to aggregate all the engagement data into one. So I was talking about this ratio of questions, chat polls per person, right? And the attendance and whatnot. So we built this this kind of algorithm that compiles everything into a score of 0 to 100. If you're a marketer, maybe you know the score called this metric called NPS, Net Promoter Score. It is exactly the same thing, but for webinars, it's called VES, Video Engagement Score. If you go to, maybe we can share that on the chat, I don't know. It's called video engagement score.org. I'll share that with the team afterwards, and maybe they can follow up with you by email. But essentially, we built this score in order to have one single metric to establish the level of engagement of a webinar. I think it's something that is necessary because we all have different interpretation of what is a good score and what is a good metric in terms of engagement. And so I think this market needs its own NPS. That's why we came up with that, and I feel it is important to follow it. I can share the website that explains how it's calculated, and there is a small calculator also you can use. You bring your data, you input your data, and we give you the score of engagement. So I can share that with the team afterwards, and then feel free to use it. It's totally free, and it will help you in your marketing funnel.
ライブストームを交えた具体的な的確な回答ありがとうございます。それでは茂木さんに聞きたいところがあるのですが、そのジルさんの回答を踏まえてのご感想と、もし自社で追っている指標などがあれば教えてください。
はい、ありがとうございます。今日はジルさんの回なので端的にいきます。ですね。やっぱりBS というのを初めて私聞きまして、結構、でも4、5社ぐらいウェビナー配信システムの会社さんのブログとか結構見てたんですけど、あまり見かけてることがない数字だったので、すごく興味深いなと感じました。で、弊社がやっているのは、よくわかりやすいのは集客数とか商談化率、あと受注数、受注率でも見ますけども、なんといってもですね、今月受注した会社、これまで受注した会社の何割がウェビナーを見たかっていうのをやってます。やっぱり日本だと月1回とか、なんか月2、3回やるのも結構大変だっていう会社さんが結構多いので、ちゃんとウェビナーが受注に寄与してるかどうかっていうのを確かめるのがすごく大事なんじゃないかなっていうのが私の見解です。はい。あと、ちょっと最後だけ1分ぐらいでお話ししますと、日本はですね、おそらくその文化もあって、チャット簡単に打てる感じの文化じゃないと思うんですよ。っていうのも、匿名でチャットするときと、バイネーム、自分の名前がわかるときのチャットする量って明らかに違うんですよね。で、なので、チャット数とか、そういったものでエンゲージメントを測る会社さんっていうのがまだ多くはないかなっていうのは、私は問い合わせいただいてたりとか、今日ご覧いただいているウェビナー担当者の皆さんと話してても感じることかなというふうに思います。はい、以上です。
はい。日本の環境を踏まえた中でのご質問ありがとうございました。それでは4つ目は参加者の方からいただいたご質問です。無形商材の顧客育成に適切なウェビナー設計方法についてアドバイスをお願いします。コンサルティングなどのような無形商材を扱う場合は、顧客をナーチャリングをするためにどのようなウェビナー設計を段階的にしていければよいのかについて教えてください。
That's an interesting question. I think if you have intangible products like consulting, I think the number one reason why people come to you is because you're an expert. I think that's the basics. If you are an expert, the webinar type that you should host is about your expertise. So it means that you have two ways of seeing things. The first one is you want to bring education on a problem that you solve. This is demand generation, what is called demand generation. So you highlight a problem that you can solve, and you want to educate people about this problem, and maybe some of them will realize they have that same problem. Okay, so let's say I'm a consultant in cybersecurity. All I do is bring you expertise on cybersecurity and educate and bring you a service to, I don't know, to train your team or your company or whatever. So the problem that I'm going to solve is whatever threat of cybersecurity that exists. Maybe there is this new virus, maybe there is this thing about, in Europe, for example, we are very attentive about privacy, GDPR, about security certifications such as the ISO 27K. So we are very attentive to that. So usually the problem that we will state in this case will be, okay, here is the regulation environment, and this is why it is a problem, because you're going to lose business because of it if you're not paying attention enough. Okay, and this is the typical problem that you want to highlight. So you're going to talk about it. You're going to maybe bring people in that will have stories about how they lost business because they lost customers and business and deals and opportunities because they didn't have a security program. And the day they started working on that, boom, they had a lot of business and they had this huge opportunities coming to them, et cetera, et cetera. So this is the demand generation thing. People will come to you to be educated about the problem, to be educated about a market, and maybe they will realize they have that same issue, and then they will reach out to you because you seem to be the expert. So this is the demand generation case that I think you should be doing. And there is the second thing, which is more down the funnel, which is the lead generation. So here you're not going to talk about the problem, you're going to talk about the solution. So let's take our example of cybersecurity again. In this case, what you're going to do is say, okay, I'm going to host a webinar about a customer case. So I'm going to talk about how I helped customer XYZ to solve this security issues, or maybe how I helped them with gaining their ISO security certification in less than 9 months and save them tons of thousands of dollars. So this is the two cases that I would do, and I will do them on a very recurring basis, weekly or maybe twice a month, to build some sort of agenda, some sort of rendezvous, every week or maybe every month, and people will know that they can reach out or they can attend whatever session you have because you're here every month and you're the expert and you're very visible and you have your own community. And this is probably how I would do it. And finally, my last advice is to not just do the webinar. The webinar must be some sort of central point in which you're going to plug different medium. Okay, so typically, if you have an audience, maybe you're going to engage that audience through a newsletter, which is a very good way to have some sort of asynchronous interaction with them, and trying to invite them on a very regular basis about, to your webinars to talk about the problems they might have or the solution you can bring. And so don't just do the webinars, trying to make this webinar the very central block of your strategy. Plug the newsletter, every content that you're going to produce. It's video, right? So a webinar is the video per definition. So you're going to recycle the content. Take the video, put that on YouTube or put that on whatever media platform. Maybe trim that down a little bit. Post it on TikTok. Post it on Instagram. Post it on whatever platform for mobile. You can even get the transcription of it. Okay, so take the transcription of the webinar itself, and then you can publish a blog post on that. Or maybe you can use AI. We're going to talk about AI later on. You can use AI to make a summary, and that summary can be a LinkedIn post or maybe a Twitter post or whatever. So try to think about the webinar as the core, like the center, and then recycle, and you will extend your reach and you will extend your audience.
具体的なそのコンテンツの活用方法までありがとうございました。小木さんも実際にこのようなお悩みを多く聞く機会もあるかと思います。ジルさんの回答を聞き、率直なご感想をお聞かせください。
はい、ありがとうございます。ウェビナーを軸とした別施策のプラグインというお話ありましたが、もう大賛成で、私もウェビナーが主軸にありながら、YouTube、X、Facebook っていう様々なソーシャルメディアを使って情報発信してますので、非常に共感したというものと、最後、ちょっとここの観点の私のご意見一つだけお伝えさせていただくと、最近、やっぱり感じるのは、安心があって買うなっていうのがありまして、何かというと、やっぱり無形商材を使っている会社は、情報を包み隠さずにちゃんとノウハウを全部発信した方がいいなっていうのは、私が感じているここの答えかなというふうに思います。で、この人やっぱちゃんとノウハウあるなって思って、最後問い合わせいただけるので、そういった観点は必要なんじゃないかなというのが私の回答です。
ありがとうございます。それでは最後の質問です。様々な業界において AI 活用がどんどん広がっていますが、ライブストームではどのように AI を活用していますか？また、ウェビナー企画においておすすめの AI ツールや活用方法について教えてください。
Right. So AI is, I think the good thing about webinar is it is a very rich media, like I said, and it has video, it has audio, it has text to the transcript and the transcription of the webinar, and AI can be very helpful in all those cases. So I think the very foundational thing is AI can just be used as a transcript. It text the video feed, it text the video stream and transform it into text. Okay, it used to be very bad, like even 3 years ago, and now it is actually very good. We have, for example, been using different types of AI models in Livestorm to generate a transcript, and we found that there is one from Azure, so Microsoft Azure, that is very good. But the one we prefer is one based in Europe called Gladia, so Gladia. It is actually very efficient. The transcript is very good. It's also quite cheap if you want to integrate that too nicely. And yeah, so it works really well with transcripts and in different languages actually. And the second piece of that is you want to, once you have your transcript of maybe 1 hour long webinar, 2 hours long webinar, it is a lot of content still. It is a lot of different takeaways and whatever. So you want to have a summary. So the next stage of the rocket is to have a summary of your transcript. So condense that into a very short summary that anyone can read and understand what has been said during your webinar, but also during your meetings, etc. So this is the two things that we do at Livestorm. This is like the very basics of webinars. And then once you have that, you can do a lot of things with AI. You can, as I said, the first use case is to recycle it. So AI is great at summarizing, at formatting. So you can use the summary formatted to be formatted in the form of a LinkedIn post. You can use the AI to to look at the transcript and trim down the replay and generate some sort of trailer, for example, some sort of the best highlights and the best moments of your webinar, and it will automatically cut all the pieces, transform that into a 1 minute or 2 minute video, and then you can use that on LinkedIn, you can use that on Instagram, you can use it on TikTok. So AI is very good at recycling also the different the content that you have produced. And I think the last thing that I found very interesting, and this is something that we use not in Livestorm but in our CRM, is to have an AI qualify the people that attend. AI is very good at comparing a pattern to another. So what I mean by that is their AI is very good at looking at a person, at the job title, at their LinkedIn profile, or their whatever kind of qualifies a person, and compare that to the average persona, the average person on your customer base. And they're going to tell you, okay, this is someone that looks like one of your that looks like your typical customer, you might want to, engage with that person. Maybe that person is a priority and that person is not a priority. So AI is very good at qualifying, like pre-qualifying your webinar attendees so it is a way to increase the conversion rates after your webinar. So those are the three. So to summarize, transcription/summarize is the first thing you want to do with AI. The second thing is recycling your content. So it's not just the webinar, but everything you can produce around it. And the last brick is qualifying give you insights on the priority you should take when it comes to retargeting the people that come to your webinars. So this is how I would use the AI. And for the last brick I just mentioned, there is a lot of different models that exist today you can use, but internally what we use is an AI called MadKudu. So MADKUDU. It's a very weird name, but it is an AI basically that looks at your firmographics, so the company data and the person data, and gives you some sort of very simple score that gives you an idea of how much pre-qualified that person is. So yeah, that's it.
ご回答ありがとうございます。茂木さんは過去にウェビナー企画における AI 活用というテーマでイベントを開催されてたんだと思うんですけども、その具体的にどういう点での AI 活用が日本のウェビナー運営で必要的だとお考えですか？
はい、ありがとうございます。企画をするのが億劫だと思う人は結構多い印象がありまして、やはり企画でまずチャット GPT 活用するっていうのが一番やりやすく、入りやすいんじゃないかなと思ってます。ただ、プロンプトで新企画を作るのではなくて、私が最近結構やってるのは、他社のうまいウェビナーのタイトルと申し込みページの URL を読み込ませて、そこの共通項、どういう、なぜうまくいってるかっていう共通項を出してくださいと。で、その後に自分たちはこの分野でウェビナーしてるんですが、どういうようなウェビナーの企画が考えられますかっていう他社のうまいセミナーの URL タイトルを結構引用してきて、そこの中和するやつを、抽出してウェビナー企画してたりするので、そういうのをやるだけでもだいぶ変わるのかなっていうのが思います。
はい、お二人とも面白い活用方法ありがとうございました。弊社からの質問は以上となります。ジルさん、茂木さん、貴重なお話ありがとうございました。
はい、皆様ご質問ありがとうございます。この後 Q&A セッションに入るんですが、もう少々質問を募集する間、私たちトップランナーマーケティングのご紹介を少しだけさせてください。はい。改めまして、株式会社トップランナーマーケティングで代表取締役を務めております、清水絹子と申します。ちょっとプライベートのお話をすると、来月の10日にですね、ちょうどジルさんが日本に来られるタイミングなんですけれども、カナダに移住予定です。ちょっとカナダの方ではもっとたくさん海外の面白いイベントがあるので、皆様に今日みたいなより面白いイベントを引き続き企画できるようになる予定なので、楽しみにしていてください。はい。そしてですね、私たちのミッションをお伝えします。私たちのミッションは日本との世界の架け橋になることです。これ何かと言いますと、日本にいながらにして、今日みたいに海外の最新の情報をジルさんのような海外のトップランナーの方からお話しいただくことで、簡単にアクセスできるようにすることで、日本をもっとより良くしたいなというふうに考えています。背景としては、今多くの B2B 企業様が、情報が多すぎて差別化が非常に難しいという課題を抱えていらっしゃいます。これはコロナ以降、マーケティング活動がどんどんオンラインにシフトしたので、イベント開催しても参加者が集まらないですとか、見込み顧客の印象に残りづらい、ナーチャリング難しいといった課題をよくクライアント様から耳にします。そこで私たちが提唱しているのがトップランナーマーケティングです。これはですね、業界の第一線で活躍されている海外のトップランナーの方々とクライアント様をおつなぎして、継続的に情報発信をすることによって、その業界自体の認知度を高めたりですね、あとは自社の業界内における地位をどんどん向上するのを実現する取り組みを指します。
UX とか OKR、海外の方がどんどん進んでいる領域が B2B サースにはたくさんありますので、すごい海外の情報っていうのは貴重になってくるんですけれども、海外との情報発信、価値は確かにあるんですが、言語の壁ですとか、時差、あとリソース不足など、様々なハードルがあるので、私たちトップランナーマーケティングがご支援することによって、クライアント様の負担ができる限り軽い形で、海外との情報発信をできるようにサービスを提供しております。こちらがですね、今、誰もが知っているようなグローバル企業のロゴがたくさん並んでいるかなと思うんですが、過去に弊社のイベントにご登壇いただいた海外トップランナーの方の一例になります。このように、クライアント様のご要望に合わせて、海外トップランナーをオーダーメイド型でご用意しております。はい、クライアント様の事業成長を加速させるためのサービスは3つご用意しております。1つ目は、海外トップランナーを招いたオンラインイベントの企画サービスです。弊社のような海外の方をお呼びするようなサービスは他社様でもいくつかいらっしゃるんですが、弊社が異なるのは、ただクライアント様より指定されたスピーカーをおつなぎするだけで終わってしまうことが多いです。ただ、私たちの場合はやはりクライアント様の負荷をできる限り軽減する形でっていうところがコンセプトになっておりますので、企画の相談段階からサポートいたしますし、あとはスライドの翻訳、通訳の手配など、すべてワンストップ型でご支援するサービスを提供しております。クライアント様からは以前、イベントの開催の工数が弊社に依頼いただいたおかげで3分の1になったといったお声をいただいております。2つ目はですね、集客支援サービスです。イベント集客を最大化するために、リンクトインやアンケート調査などといった従来型の手法とは異なる形で、集客を支援しております。最後に3つ目ですね、海外の方へのインタビューができるショートコンサルティングサービスを提供しています。こちらもイベント企画と同様にヒアリング候補者はオーダーメイド型でお探しをしているので、過去に実際にあった案件ですと、UX 文化をゼロから会社全体に広めた経験がある有名なグローバル企業に在籍している人というかなり細かい条件でご指定いただいて実現したことがございます。はい、それだけでなくてですね、質問リストの作成から通訳の手配、あと当日の実施サポートまで全てお任せいただけるのがこちらのサービスになります。もしこの中でご興味をお持ちいただけるものがありましたら、開催後のアンケートにてぜひご興味お聞かせいただければ幸いです。はい、ありがとうございます。質問集まってきましたね。そうしましたらお待たせしました Q&A セッションの方に戻らせていただきます。
はい、お待ちかね Q&A セッションのコーナーです。皆さんご質問ありがとうございます。それでは早速ジルさんに質問していきたいと思います。ライブ開催のウェビナーとオンデマンド配信はどちらが良質だと思いますか？その理由も知りたいです。とのことです。お願いいたします。
Yes, that's a good question. I think it depends on on the use case. So it depends on the importance and of what you're going to show. So I'll tell you how we use both of them so you can see the difference. For us, we have on-demand broadcasts for small pieces of training that are very basics, and we use it for ongoing evergreen support and training. So we have like 15 or 20-minute sessions that are on demand for the fundamentals of the platform and the very basics of how you can use it. This is the type of content that people want to watch at any given moment. Could be at 10 a.m., 3 p.m., maybe at night, whatever, and they don't want to wait to have that training. They want to have that right away. So there is a first parameter, which is immediacy of the content. And the second parameter is it has to be something that is basic, so you don't have to explain over it or maybe give some more information. And you want to use live because you want to engage with a person. It is an important content. You want to give context. And yes, and I think those are the main reasons. So typically for us, the live broadcast is the important broadcast. So typically like a demo or a specific onboarding for a client, or maybe an announcement, a marketing announcement, that sort of thing. So we prioritize live sessions for important broadcast.
はい、ありがとうございます。それでは残り2問進めさせていただきます。On24 ジャパンの方から、ヨーロッパではオンラインセミナーのパスワードを好まないと聞きました。ライブストームでも同様の傾向がありますか？とのことです。
So you've seen from the company website on 24, which is a competitor that in Europe, well, attendees don't like to enter password to enter an event. Why we don't have that on Livestorm, so we don't have any specific use case where people want to have a password to enter a given session. I feel this is very niche, and I feel this is mostly for internal use case where you need to keep some sort of privacy to that event. On the external type marketing use case, you don't need a password. All you want to have is a form for registration that is qualifying enough so you have the data and you don't have to put a password. I think also having a password is probably not the best idea and probably a lack of features. The reason I'm saying this, if for example, the reason why we don't need it is because every access link on Livestorm has a security signature and a cookie associated to it. So essentially nobody can impersonate your connection link. So you don't need a password. It is a one unique link with an ID that is attached to a given person. So it is secure as such, and you don't need a password. I think adding a password in general for whatever use case, it will add friction. It will create this kind of barrier to attend, and you don't want to do that. Your form should be enough, and you should not add a password. You need to have a platform that is secure enough to preserve anonymity and privacy. And then the form, everything that your attendees will fill is for qualification or the purpose of your webinar. You don't need a password on top of that. At least it's my opinion.
ご回答ありがとうございました。パスワードについてもやっぱり国とかによっても違うかなというふうに思ったので、すごく参考になります。それでは最後の質問に移りたいと思います。質問は、先ほどインタビューでのエンゲージメントの高め方のところに付随した質問かなというふうに思うのですが、参加者があれですね、コメントを投稿することに対して心理的なハードルを下げるために、質疑応答の開始前に、その事前にいただいた質問をウェビナー管理者から貼るという形でも効果的ですか？それとも参加者が書かないと意味がないですか？とのことです。お願いいたします。
It is a very good point. I think that is totally something that I'm the host and the moderator should do in order to not leave, as you said, a blank paper. So this is a very good point. Also, going back to AI, I know this is a feature that we have actually considered to build, is something like kind of AI participants or AI moderators that will actually post in the chat as if they were, participants to bring some sort of engagement and not have this blank canvas. So this is a good use case. Also have your team can join, even if they're not moderator or host, just like team can join as an attendee and trying to help you with that. This is also a good practice. And as you said, it is very cultural. It depends on the level of comfort that people have. So you can, I took a silly example of what is your favorite drink kind of question. And this is very, very casual and very silly, but you could have some very more formal question. It could be just like a brief introduction, or it could be something like, I don't know, like the city they work in, something very much more normal and neutral. So they don't feel they're, kind of overstepping and giving too much information. And I know there is a cultural barrier in that, but I think having your team first come in and help you to fill the canvas is definitely a good practice. This is a very good point.
ご回答ありがとうございます。そのチームでウェビナーを作っていくということは私もすごく共感するところなので、今後もそうやってエンゲージメントを高めていきたいなと思います。それでは Q&A セッションのコーナーはこちらで終了させていただきます。ありがとうございました。
Well, thank you for asking all those great questions. I think Those are very, very legitimate questions. I feel we all share the same, for all the prospect customers, all the people that I work with, they all have the same concern. So the first thing is what you feel, and the questions that you ask are actually very common. So it is very legitimate questions. We have tons of content on the website. We have tons of content on our resource section. They are free. You can use them if you want. We have, for example, this webinar planning. We have a timeline that you can use. So you're just going to input your the time of your webinar, the date of your webinar, and it will basically create a timeline of everything you should do before. So we can help you with that. I think our job as a webinar platform, and not just Livestorm, every webinar platform, is to help you kind of do the work for you, do the heavy lifting. If you don't know how to do webinars, it's our job to tell you how to do it. It's our job as a marketer, because it is stressful. It is not very comfortable to do webinars, especially the first time. So we have to help you a lot with that and tell you how it works, tell you how to do it, and trying to relieve the stress of the exercise, because it is much less comfortable than writing a blog post, for example. So feel free to ask your webinar provider for every content that they have, because usually they have tons of content to help you kickstart your webinar program, and it will be much easier. Don't do that by yourself. Ask a consultant, ask the webinar platform, ask someone to help you. This is what they do. This is what they can provide you the knowledge, and they can relieve the stress. So don't do it by yourself, especially if you're new at this. This is my advice.